welcome to Television Tonga's news package for tonight. Making headlines, 2014 academic year for the schools in Hawaii have been delayed. Government of New Zealand and Queensland in Australia have pledged to offer $50,000 each to assist the victims of Ian. New Zealand Defence Force C-130 this afternoon arrived at the Whamatu Domestic Airport, delivering the New Zealand's government to the devastated island of Hawaii. These and more stories later on in this bulletin. The 2014 academic year for the schools in Hawaii have been delayed until further notice. This is after schools in the island were battered by Cyclone Ian. This was confirmed by some of the school's main office in Nuku'alofa. Sinlato reports.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Samuel Waipulu, spoke to Radio and Television Tonga saying some of the school's rooftops were torn apart and blown off while other schools were taken down by Ian. There is more damage recorded in some areas compared to other areas in the island. We have helped put up some temporary roofs in some schools because the beginning of school year is near. I've already informed the Minister of Education that if school year begins and there is still no electricity to Ha'apai High School and Taufahau below level, then we will put up a standby generator there for the schools to use. He says they hoped the students' studies will not be affected from what has happened. Meanwhile, the Deputy Director of the Free Church of Tonga Education Department, Reverend Sione Kaivelata, says they will decide what's next towards the Tailulu College in Ha'apai in a meeting to be conducted by the church's education leaders. An assessment was made in Ha'apai and its result will be submitted to the meeting. There were 3 buildings there. 2 buildings were badly affected during the cyclone. In one building, there were 4 classrooms, the principal and the deputy's office, and the school library. The roof was torn off and even the veranda in that building. The roof was also torn off in the other affected building, causing damage to many parts of the classrooms, such as the desks and other things. The school's computer lab was also affected from the storm. There's only 1 building left in Tailulu. He says all damaged classrooms and school materials worth around more than 100,000 pa'anga. Meanwhile, the principal of St. Joseph in Ha'apai, Sister Malia Kiutao, says it will take time for the teachers to clean up the debris before the school resume for its 2014 academic year.
We have 1 building blown off with the whole roof blown off, and that building includes the school. So there's no roof on the industrial art area, and also with the office. It's been blown off by the cyclone Ian. The machine which the students use for their industrial art program are all exposed to the rain and the salt water during the hurricane, the cyclone. And the office, everything like the computer, photocopiers are all damaged by the hurricane. The staff rooms also damaged, and the library books are all wet. Our computer labs still look at the computers and see that the water got into them.
She adds some of the classrooms have become refuge centres for many families in the island, even up to now. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilato.
Both the Government of New Zealand and Queensland in Australia have pledged to offer $50,000 each to assist the victims of Ian in the Ha'apai group of islands. This was revealed by the New Zealand's Foreign Minister, Honourable Murray McCully, and Minister for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and Multicultural Affairs, Glenn Elms of Queensland. The Deputy Prime Minister and Chairman of the National Emergency Management Fund, Honourable Samuel Waipulu, confirmed this to Radio Tonga. He says similar donations were also pledged by the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. The Deputy Prime Minister also says that the procedures used for such assistance is that the government have to request for a donation before the foreign partners offered their help. This is after the New Zealand Foreign Affairs Minister Murray McCully today announced New Zealand is providing further assistance to Tonga in the wake of Tropical Cyclone Ian. Meanwhile, the Minister for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and Multicultural Affairs, Glenn Elms, said Queensland would provide the financial support directly to the Tongan government to assist in the rebuilding effort. Mr. Elms announced the donation when attending a Tongan prayer service for cyclone victims at Redcliffe, one of two areas in Brisbane where there is a significant Tongan population. The other is Loken. The Honourable Minister also wished the Tongan community a speedy recovery from this natural disaster. A New Zealand Defence Force C-130 this afternoon arrived at the Whamatu Domestic Airport, delivering the New Zealand's government aid to be delivered later on to the devastated island of Hapai.
Speaking to Television Tonga News, His Excellency Mike Talbot says New Zealand and Tongan long-standing ties is the key to all help and support they've made since day one of the damage caused by Ian. He says the donation made includes 300 shelter kits, which can provide shelter for 2,000 people, a provision of clean water, and others.
The New Zealand government and the New Zealand people's thoughts are really with the people of Hapai at the moment. I went up there on Monday, and the thing that amazed me was the resilience and the happiness of people in Hapai. But you know, the extent of the destruction up there is just incredible to see. 70, 80, 90% of houses lost. Water becoming a bit of a problem. Power, communications, life up there will not be normal for a long time. So, New Zealand and New Zealanders' hearts really go out to the people of Hapai at the moment. We want to be in a position where we can help, but we want to complement whatever the Government of Tonga requests of us.
The High Commissioner adds they've announced the government's $500,000 relief effort for Tonga. Meantime, they've also offered another help to the non-government organisations.
So it's 300,000 New Zealand dollars which has been made available, and the way in which non-governmental organisations will be able to access it is they will need to apply through the New Zealand Aid Program in Wellington, and they would need to submit a specific request that explains what they propose to do in Hapai and how it will help with the relief effort.
Also welcoming the donation at the domestic airport was the Honourable Minister of Land, Survey, Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, Lord Ma'afu, and others.
Work is still being carried out to improve the communication devices at the Salote Pilolevu Airport in Hapai. The manager of the airport, Viliami Filimone, told Radio and Television Tonga News reporter in Hapai, Pia Olie, that the tribe aimed at ensuring safety of flights in the island.
This is the Salote Pilolevu Airport after Tropical Cyclone Ian's visit to Hapai. Tropical Cyclone Ian destroyed parts of the airport, including the rooftops, ceiling, windows, amongst many other things. The estimated cost of the damages is more than 1,000 ba'anga. As for the communication device, there's hope that it will go back to normal within the next 2 weeks, not including the work that needs to be done to other areas of the airport. Mr. Filimone says they've attended to more than 10 flights into the island after the cyclone. Before work was done to the fence around the airport, the people had to stand around the area to help keep away animals and prevent anyone from crossing over the runway. This was done all throughout on Monday, and we had help from the youth and the people. Mr. Filimone reassures that they've put up a temporary fence using poles from tree trunks, thanks to help from soldiers from His Majesty's Armed Forces. He says the runway and the waiting area is in a satisfactory state, apart from other areas that needs to be renovated as soon as possible. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilato.
Tonga Red Cross Society has received more than 20,000 pa'anga presented to them by those who were willing to help those that were left homeless and made less fortunate by Tropical Cyclone Ian. The Secretary-General of Tonga Red Cross Society, Sione Tamoefolau, confirmed this to Television Tonga News this morning.
This was during a 15,000 pa'anga assistance from ANZ Bank being presented to the Secretary-General of the Tonga Red Cross Society, Sione Tamoefolau, this morning. He says the money they've collected so far will purchase water to be distributed to Lifuka and the other islands. We've given out assistance to almost half of the people of Ha'apai, but we are now looking at reaching out water to the islands, especially the islands of Mo'ungaone, Lofanga and Kauwai. Meantime, branch manager of the Nuku'alofa ANZ Bank, Leilani Vainuku, says this is part of their responsibilities to the communities that are in need is to lend a helping hand. We felt that this is part of our responsibility is to help the residents of Ha'apai. We've been operating in Tonga for more than 20 years and we've worked closely with the people, so this is part of our effort of paying them back in return. Meanwhile, the town officer of Golo Livai Taivei says the work carried out by the team from the Tonga Red Cross in Ha'apai has helped them a lot and has become a comfort to the locals. The households of Golo consist of 36 houses. 13 has been fully damaged, 12 obtained minor damages, leaving behind only 4 houses for the locals to seek shelter to. At the same time, other donations are yet to be handed over to the Ha'apai group of islands through the Tonga Red Cross. For Television Tonga News, I'm Manasiu Falekaono.
Meanwhile, a radiophone program was conducted today in Nuku'alofa by the Ha'apai Relief Fund Committee, and they've collected 70,000 pa'anga. This is the first part of a series of programs held to help collect monetary assistance to Ha'apai. The second phase of the program will be a friendly match between the Toloa Old Boys and the Ha'apai All Stars. It's important when you give others to give it with a cheerful and warm, loving heart. This was emphasized by the director of the Caritas Tonga, Sister Senolita Wakata, while speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News. This relates to the assistance collected by Caritas Tonga of the Catholic Church Diocese of Tonga and Niue, aiming to help the victims of Ian in Ha'apai.
The director of the Caritas Tonga says, since the tropical cyclone hit the island causing much destruction, Caritas Tonga has appealed for aid to its New Zealand counterpart, Caritas New Zealand. The spirit of our help is not for all to know, but to give it with all our heart. When you do something, you have to do it with the very best you can. Caritas New Zealand joins many foreign aid pledged to Tonga with a commitment of 40,000 New Zealand dollars to the recovery relief efforts and provision of basic necessities like food, shelter and bedding. We've looked at the most intense need of the locals, which is water. We already sent out 20 litres of water to Lifuka to be distributed among the households. We also plan other help to be funded by Caritas New Zealand aid money. Sister Senolita says that they have already sent more than 300 water bottles to the island. For Television Tonga News, Samanasi Falekaono.
The Supreme Court has dismissed an appeal by Samiwela Akilisi-Pohiva over a decision of the Magistrate Court discharging the Prime Minister Lord Diverano, William Clive Atwood's Tongaset and Her Royal Highness Princess Piloleva Tuita over allegations of theft, accessory to theft and concurring or conspiring with Tongaset to steal about 18 million pa'anga. Staff of the Audit Department has been transferred to work under the authority of the Legislative Assembly effective as from January 6, 2014. The move was part of a recommendation on a private bill passed in 2012 where employees of the Audit Department is to work under the second authority, which is the Parliament instead of the Executive, that is the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The Auditor General, Reverend Dr. Pohiva Tuanetoa, told Radio Tonga News today that the private bill was submitted to Parliament by People's Representative for Tongatapu No. 5, the newly appointed Minister of Finance and National Planning, Honourable Dr. Isaac Evalueke. He says since 2012 they've been working with the Public Civil Servants Commission trying to sort out issues concerning their staff's welfare before they could start it under the authority of Parliament early this year. According to Tuanetoa, it was an initiative from the old government in 2007 when they had prepared to introduce the new government democratic system in starting with the transfer of the Auditor General. Dianatoa says moving of the Audit Office to the Parliament will help its staff in regards to their independence, as they will no longer work under any other authorities apart from the Parliament. The Auditor General also described that it's a sensitive role of an auditor to check and audit the executive's financial activities while working under the same body, although the report of the outcome is for the Parliament. The newly appointed director of the Free Wesleyan Church's Education Division hoped to assist principals of all the Free Wesleyan Church schools in Tonga before 2014 academic year. Linda Filihai reports. In a first meeting conducted by the director of the Free Wesleyan Church Schools Division, Reverend Dr. Milena Poloka, she emphasized the importance of planning ahead of time. The participants will later draft a plan for this academic year. We're hoping that everyone can work as a team and cooperate for the better. However, Reverend Dr. Milena Poloka also spoke more about their close relationships with the Tongan government. I'm glad to say that our relationship with the government has flourished recently, and with their support and help, we were able to meet some of our demands and goals. We therefore hope that they continue with their support. Attending the meeting were representatives from the Mama Mo'onia Group, Haumātua High School students from the South Australia's University, amongst others. The education theme for this year is Jesus having the wisdom and knowledge. And that's the local scene. Sports is up next with Sinla Thor.